Well, welcome to another podcast here on the land of saints and sinners. Well, having said that, someone commented the other day and they called it what?
Love Island politics.
Love
Apparently,
Island?
we look like a couple, and apparently, we look like we're totally in love, and we should be on Love Island politics.
So, what do you think?
Ta-da!
So, welcome to another podcast anyway. Thank you to all our new subscribers. We're up to nearly 600 now here on YouTube. So, thank you ever so much. And on TikTok,
We have reached the milestone of 1,000, and we'd like to thank everybody for joining us on our journey with the saints and sinners. But can I just suggest that we never do a live again?
No, I know. Remember
that live was awful.
Yeah, it was dreadful. We had people coming on and saying shit certain. No, there was a lot of shit said, and it wasn't good, was it? I just say shit there. Yeah, it was a lot of shit said. It wasn't good, was it?
Shit instead of shit.
Did I? It's because I'm Welsh, right? So I'm going to start that tonight. We wanted to come on to talk to you about something that's been doing the rounds both today and yesterday. And it's to do with an interview with Lucy Powell. Now, she's a cabinet minister and also an MP, and she has been absolutely dragged over the coals, and rightly so, because of her statement that she made regarding the grooming gangs and the lack of inquiry, or no inquiry whatsoever, that Labour's position have taken. So let's just listen to this clip, and then we'll be right back and share our thoughts.
You saw the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs over this.
We want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Yeah.
Okay. There is a real issue.
Let's get that dog whistle out, shall we?
Okay, Lucy.
Well, I don't know about you, but I think that is absolutely disgusting.
Absolutely. So just to clarify what actually the dog whistle means. So in politics, a dog whistle is the use of coded or suggestive language in a political messaging to garner support from a particular group without provoking opposition. So what do you make of that?
I mean, yeah, the dog whistle as well. I mean, the context of this interview was around the grooming gangs, wasn't it? Right.
Yep.
So, and Labour we know the reasons why. We believe that they're complicit. They're part of it. It's intentional. They do not want a public inquiry.
Of course I don't.
Why
else is Tommy Robinson being banged up?
It's one big cover-up. We're going to speak about Tommy probably a bit later. But Tim Montgomery, who was on that radio programme with Lucy Powell, was the former advisor to Boris Johnson. Now he's with Reform. And when he was talking about Labour not holding these people to account and having a public inquiry, because they won so many council seats, over, was it 600 or something, 500 to 600 council seats, a massive landslide politically. I think that they were wanting the councils then to investigate those areas where they've won the seats, where grooming gangs were operating. Mm-hmm. And she said, you heard that clip there. Oh, you're going to play that trumpet now, are you? Yeah. Oh, you're just dog whistling. I mean, there are victims involved here, Giorgio, aren't there?
Yeah, of course. And I think, if I was the victim's mother, if I was the victim's family member, or if I was a victim themselves, hearing that is the most disrespectful and disregarding comment that anybody could make. She's now come out with an apology, hasn't she? And her apology is clearly because she's had a slap on the wrists, and she's been told, right, you either publicly apologise or you're out, basically. Yeah. And quite frankly, she should just be out anyway. Why are we even giving her a chance to apologise?
Yeah, well, there's been the rounds on social media, people calling for her to be sacked, and I'm in agreement with that. She should be sacked. Nobody in public office, anybody, should make comments like that when you consider they were young girls that were violently raped, some were violently raped, and Tommy Robinson exposed that on a documentary that's reached millions of people, around the world globally, and he's been put in prison for it for 18 months not for the video itself, but for the embargo. They told him, you don't show this documentary, don't show it, and he went two fingers to the establishment, to the system, said no. People need to hear these victims, and he showed them, didn't he?
Yeah. So I think, as a counsellor, when I've dealt with people who have gone through the trauma of rape, I'm actually welling up now, even thinking about that comment being made, how disrespectful, and how how low would you feel knowing that a cabinet member is, literally totally degrading and decimating any feeling and any pain that person has gone through. And trauma is so apparent in people, and especially in when you haven't had the answers. So if the police haven't investigated, the police haven't believed them, if there is now, we're asking for this to go further, let's just kind of recognize this. and this is not being recognised, you are going to feel like totally invalidated, totally traumatised, and like you have no faith in anything. And so for somebody to say that comment, she clearly hasn't gone through anything like that. You know, but if it was her daughter, if it was her child, if it was her sister, let me tell you what she would do. She would be wanting that inquiry immediately, and she would be pushing doors to ensure that that happened.
Yeah. And I think part of the cover-up, because this is one massive cover-up, we've had scandals. We've had the post office scandals. We've had the blood scandals, you know, with HIV many years ago, you know, and only some of that's been paid out. Some post office scandals have been paid out. This cover-up is huge. I mean, it's not come to fruition yet because Labour is suppressing it. Wes Phillips, at every point in House of Commons when they're debating it, it's shut down, you know.
Yeah.
They're promising it's going to happen, it's never going to happen. Even Nigel Farage promised that he would take a private inquiry, raise the money to do it. He didn't do it, but Rupert Lowe has. So fair play to Rupert Lowe.
Yeah,
you know,
well
big
done,
shout out
Rupert.
for him, because he's a man of principle, because he said, no, you know what, I'll raise the money because we need an inquiry to find out who has covered this up and why. So why would politicians cover something up? Think about that. Why would they cover it up?
Sorry, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Why would Farage say that he's going to do something and hasn't done it? Why has that happened? Why is it taken for Rupert Lowe to do it?
Well, I think prior to the elections, he was talking about it a lot, about the grooming gangs. But it was interesting enough because Tommy Robinson was the one, even though Farage will claim that he was the one that was talking about it years before, and he did mention it years before. But Tommy Robinson is languishing in a prison cell with an 18-month sentence for a civil offence, not a criminal offence, because he exposed what was going on with the Rotherham grooming gangs in particular. And he had victims. I was there in London. I watched the video with hundreds of thousands of people, or tens of thousands. I can't remember. There was a sea of people. And there were victims on this big screen sharing their real painful, heartfelt experiences of how much hurt and pain and shame that they felt and what they'd been through. And it was to show the public. And they were, I mean, for them to come forward in the first place to share their stories is heroic of them. And then he's put in jail for it. And they've even talking about when he comes out of prison,
It's disgusting.
that if he doesn't take the video down, which has reached millions of people across social media, especially here on X and Twitter as well, but across the world, even he's had the support of Elon Musk, Donald Trump, you know, all of these people are seeing what's going on in our country. And they see what Labour are doing. They're covering it up for a reason. They want Tommy Robinson banged up for a reason, because he's speaking truth to power. And Labour don't like that, because Keir Starmer is deceitful. He's dishonest and he's a liar. He's proven that, hasn't he?
Absolutely has. I mean, in everything, you know, this man says one thing and does another. You know, sorry, but it says in the Bible, do not listen to a double-minded man. This man is saying one thing and doing another. It's a complete hypocrite.
He is, absolutely. And Lucy Powell, there's been a huge thing there about sacking her and everything else. And I totally agree with that. The woman should be sacked immediately, because I can imagine number 10, you know, shuffling around the last couple of days, calling into the office and saying, what the fluff have you done? Like, you know, why have you said that?
I'd have just booted her out immediately. You do not disregard and absolutely take away from what somebody has suffered. You know, by, oh, you know, this, I mean, it was like jeering. It was weird. Like, even her attitude, the way that she said it, there was no compassion. There was no like, okay, look, we're going down that road. Let's not go down that road yet. You know, let's talk about something else. It was a valid point that he raised. She decided to be dismissive, but in such a derogatory way that actually is insulting to the people. And then now she's having to write an apology saying that she wasn't
well, you read that apology. What did you make of that apology?
Absolute bullshit.
What
a farce. It was. I feel like a hand's been like put behind her arm. No, a hand's been put behind her back, and they're making her say something, and she's now scrambling out of a hole that she's just like dug, you know, to actually express this sorrow, or that it was misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, bitch.
No. And I think they had Wes Streeting doing the rounds today. He was on Sky News, he was on BBC Don't Pay Your TV Licence, he was on loads of different mainstream media channels today, because they do the rounds today, and he had to defend her. He was on with Trevor Phillips this morning on Sky News. And even his apology, this is what he said. He said, well, look, Lucy's a good woman. She didn't mean to say what she said. You know, when you're in a heated debate, sometimes you say things and you make mistakes. He says, I'm sure I'll make mistakes in the future. I mean, that was not a mistake, because what comes out of your heart, what's in your heart comes out of your mouth.
Absolutely.
So you're thinking it's in your heart. And so she is part of the cover-up. She's complicit, regardless of what everyone thinks about her as a person. I'm not attacking her personally. Well, I am actually. she should be sacked for that. Because
I
it's an
think she should
absolute
be sacked.
disgrace. And I don't understand, in any job, if you said something like that in a normal job, you'd be sacked.
It's abhorrent. It's absolutely abhorrent. You know, to actually speak like that and to speak ill of, you don't speak ill of the dead,
No.
right? So you do not speak ill of people who are actually having a huge injustice, you know, and they need this justice to come forth. And that is why we have to stand up.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this kind of amplifies what the Labour Party is like? You know, they talk about being compassionate, and you know,
There's no compassion.
There is none.
They have no compassion whatsoever. They literally are like scum of the earth, I'm afraid. They talk about, you know, being, you know, the people's
party of the people.
Yeah. They're not. They are absolutely for themselves. It's all about them being weft puppets. It's all about them being affiliated to the elite. It's all about them, you know, wanting to score. Do you know, like how I imagine like Kier?
Yeah.
Like if I was to actually meet him and actually hang out with him, he's just like a proper arse licker.
Yeah.
But he tries to be the face, and he's there just like running around everybody. But he's just really slimy. I don't like him.
You don't even like his voice, do you? When it comes on,
oh my gosh, get him off.
I'm watching politics to do some research, you're like, turn it off, mute it.
I can't stand him at all. You know, and I think this is the general consensus of everybody now. We cannot stand him. He should no longer be Prime Minister. You know, and there was talk the other day that if he was to step down, who's going to replace him?
Very interesting.
You know, and I'd be interested to see how
well, maybe our viewers might be able to leave some comments to who they think it might be, because the way it's going for him at the moment is 9-10 months in as Prime Minister, and they're full of excuses. They always deflect. It's never their fault. Never their fault. Yeah, I mean, the thing is with governments, they always do it.
I get it.
Yeah, the first thing they do is they blame the previous government. There's only so much blame in the previous government, but you're in power now.
Yeah.
You've got the power to change things. You've got a majority, so you can do things.
Absolutely.
You know? And what they've done is they've sent us down the canal with a paddle, basically. That country's going to shit under Labour, and people are seeing it. The local elections we talked about in our podcast just the other night is a perfect example of the sentiment of people out there on the streets. They've had an absolute tick full of Labour.
Yeah. I mean, you know, most people that were Labour, and again, this is what I'm seeing people commenting, is that, you know, I used to vote Labour, and I feel so ashamed that I've actually brought them in, but they've lied to me. And I think people are feeling duped. People are feeling completely like flummoxed by, hang on a minute, this is what your manifesto said. This is what you said that you would do. And, you know, you've got clips and clips and clips of Kier stating one thing, which is, you know, council tax is going to be fixed. You know, you've got the pensioners are going to be looked after. And every single thing, he's just totally done a mad 360 on.
Well, I'll tell you what. 360. No, you've done the full U-turn. It's called flip-flopping, isn't it? It's flip-flopping. Or sliders, it might be. I love my sliders. I think we should watch Wes Streeting today. I think we should watch that clip, because you'll see what he tried to wangle. And you just look at his face. When you watch this clip, look at his face closely. He was very uncomfortable having to defend the undefendable. So just watch this.
Wes Streeting, your cabinet colleague, Lucy Powell, dismissed the grooming gangs scandal as a dog whistle issue, presumably meaning a coded signal to racists. Is that how you and your colleagues see the abuse of hundreds of children in British cities?
No, and I don't think that's what Lucy intended to imply in a heated debate on Radio 4, and that's why she's apologised for what she said. I think that's the right thing to do, but you know, I've known Lucy for a long time. I don't think for a moment she would have meant or wanted to imply that raising these issues, talking about these issues, is dog whistle.
But you can see why people would think that the government actually really has an attitude to this which says it's not that important. We're not going to give you a national inquiry. When somebody, the opposition, pull you up on it, you dismiss it.
Oh, my God. He looks so uncomfortable, didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't laugh. I mean, it's difficult for him, isn't it? I mean, because he wasn't the one who said it, but the point is he's having to defend the undefendable, and you could see in his face and his expression, and the words that he uses there, it's like, well, you know, it's kind of like, well, you know, we all make mistakes.
That's not a mistake.
Not good enough.
That is a reaction and fear because she doesn't want to be exposed.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know when you're fearful of something, like the psychology behind this is like when you're fearful, you will react like really badly, and truth will come out, but it will be in a defensive manner. And so what she's done is just completely, stopped it in its tracks by being really, really vile.
Yeah. And I think the Labour Party, are facing huge problems right now. I mean, they're all scuttling on little rats, trying to work out, what they're going to come up with, because they took a right bashing in the local elections. They know that. I was watching the news today, and I noted that a lot of even the mainstream media now are really not big in Reform Up, but what they're saying is like, Reform are the opposition now.
Yeah.
Conservatives have gone. They're a busted flush. Said it before.
Obsolete.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kemi Badenoch was on Laura Kunsberg this morning, and she was talking about it as well. And she was saying, look, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And it's not hitting home with people. I think people have had an absolute tipful of politicians and the lies and the scandals and everything else. They're looking for an alternative. But Lucy Powell, in my opinion, is a disgrace. She should be sacked. She shouldn't be a cabinet minister. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it should be a by-election, because we're talking, as you've already expressed quite powerfully, the effect that it has on people that have been, abused, raped, and what they've been through. They were children, Jojo. They were kids, like some of them, when they were, you know what I mean? And it angers me. I get really pissed off that there's no inquiry. I mean, if there's not an inquiry, they're hiding something. And I think it's because some of them are complicit in that cover-up, as we mentioned earlier about Kier Starmer when he was head of Crown Prosecution.
All out of fear of offending
A certain ethnic minority.
Come on.
I mean...
this is our people.
Yeah.
These are the people that belong in this country. And I'm not saying that people who have moved over here and have lived here forever don't belong here. I'm not saying like that. But what I am saying is when they are targeting our children, right? That is beyond anything, that we are not having an inquiry of any description. It blows my head. It's like, this is it's an outrage.
And I think by not having this inquiry, this is going to hit Labour even harder. You know, I mean, there's calls for not just for her to resign and step down and be sacked, but also for Kier Starmer. I mean, he's almost said nothing about the matter really. Commented at all.
All he talks about his position with looking after Jimmy Savile and how he held all those cases. We don't give a fuck, mate. No. We do not give a fuck. No. I mean, so what? That doesn't stop. Just because you're saying that, it's like a deflection. It's like a complete deflection by saying, oh, this is what I did and this is who I am. So what did you do? Jimmy Savile was still abusing children like for however long, and yet you're still standing there saying that you will lead prosecution. Fuck off.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree 100%. I should imagine many people watching this podcast tonight will feel the same way. The sense of anger and the indignity of it all, really, that these people have abused their position of power and covered things up. I mean, I just it makes you want to disengage with politics, but we can't, because we have to fight against them.
Absolutely.
So we can't just pull away and go, I have nothing to do with it, bury your head in the sand or in the concrete, because that's what it seems that Kier Starmer's doing. He just doesn't care. I mean, he came across during the election as I care about Britain, I care about the working people. He doesn't give a toss.
Again, he's double-minded. He doesn't say what he says, what he does are completely different things. But you have to imagine, if this is your daughter, if this is your granddaughter, and you are not able to get an inquiry, how heartbreaking is that? I'm welling up thinking about this. My daughter or, my granddaughter, if any of my family went through this and felt totally disbelieved, and then they didn't get the right support and the right help, where do you go from there?
Yeah. And I think those victims as well have the right to be heard. Justice, they need to have justice. And of course, I don't care what ethnic minority. I don't care if they were Pakistanis. I don't care if they were, Asian, all the different minorities out there, or, Bangladeshians or Iranians, whatever country they're from. Well, it's not about the colour of the skin, is it?
No.
We've always said this on our show. We don't care about the colour of the skin. It's about the act of what happened and what was covered up. And it happened to be an ethnic minority group that this was done. And it was done over a period of years and years and years. And in fact, it's still happening in some of our cities across the country. And the Met Police, for whatever reason, they're like, well, we don't, we got to be sensitive because we'd be called racist if we go into
I don't care.
We don't care.
Be called racist.
Don't care.
Let me tell you what rape does to you. It devastates you. It strips you of anything and everything that you ever thought was normal. It makes you feel dirty. It makes you feel totally disbelieved. It makes you feel shameful. You carry pain like no other. You get PTSD. You carry things within you, deep within you, on a spiritual and mental and physical level that never, ever go away. And these girls, and who are now women, are having to carry that for the whole of their days. It will never, ever, ever leave them, Rich. Ever.
I mean, I'm speechless, Ian, because I can feel your emotions, and it makes my anger. My emotions are all over the place. I'm kind of sad, but I'm really, really angry. I'm angry at this government. I'm angry at Keir Starmer. I'm angry at the cabinet. I'm angry at Lucy Powell. I'm angry at politicians who just don't feel any sense of compassion or love for the people they say they serve. They're supposed to be serving us. The only people they're serving are themselves. And it's about time that some of these politicians were put right, and I could say a few things here, but I won't, because I'll go on a mad rant, right? Because I'm really tempted to say what I really think. Oh, fuck it, I'm going to say it anyway, right?
Go on.
Keir Starmer is an absolute fucking disgrace. The guy should not be the Prime Minister of this country. I know there's a general election in 2029, but if we can get enough Labour MPs to rebel against him, then we can make changes. We've got to get this guy out. Now, the alternatives aren't great, I know, but anything is better than what we're faced with right now. I mean, especially when you consider this massive cover-up. They put Tommy Robinson in prison for exposing it. This Lucy Powell gets away with it. And Keir Starmer carries on. And what does he say? We're going to go harder and faster. Well, harder and faster and screwing up our country. You absolute twat.
You meant that, didn't you?
I did mean it, yeah, I did. And that's how I feel. I think that's what a lot of people feel. And hopefully this video won't get banned. But we're just speaking the truth. And it's what people need to hear. And so we just want to say to all of you out there, especially those of you who were potentially or were victims of these grooming gangs, our hearts go out to you, Jojo, don't they?
Mm-hmm. They absolutely
And
do.
we're speechless. I'm quite emotional. I think we need to end the podcast here because I'm quite emotional about it.
Yep, me too.
Hey guys, listen, thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's a short one tonight, but we just want to come on to share that with you. Let us know your thoughts as well. Leave some comments, and of course, we'll read them out, maybe in another podcast as well. And any of the topics you'd like us to cover, we'll be back the next day or two with another podcast. Don't forget to follow us on all the social media platforms, and of course, hit the subscribe button and share with your friends. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Bye for now.